So let me think about it as almost like managerial shorthand for forget about it.
Yeah.
The difficulty with that then is that employees feel that their manager is undependable, that the small things aren't delivered on, and because they're not delivered on, I can't trust you.
What if you had the opportunity to have a coffee with your 18-year-old self? What advice would you offer? And would you actually take the advice and offer? I'm absolutely fascinated by that question. I interview people from all walks of life, from Heineken Cup winners, New York Times bestselling authors, polar explorers, you name them, I've interviewed them. Be inspired, learn and grow from the experience of others. Welcome to the What I Know Now podcast with Mark Kelly. Bob Lee is an internationally recognized conference speaker and business performance specialist, and in 2002 he set up the first Great Place to Work Institute, which is the globally authority on high trust, high performance workplace cultures. From conversations with hundreds of managers and employees around the world, Bob became intrigued by a simple question. Why and how do some managers build high-achieving teams of highly engaged individuals, and while so many struggle to inspire their people to achieve each average performance and results? He then went on to publish the results in his first book, Trust Rules: How the World's Best Managers Create Great Places to Work, which went on to become a #1 bestseller status in Amazon's international business category. Delighted to have you on the show, Bob. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark.
So when you're growing up as a young kid, you probably don't want to get into this maybe. You probably think to be a footballer or maybe an astronaut. How did you end up working in this type of field?
I suppose, I had a fairly checkered early career. I worked in insurance for a couple of years, and I worked with British Railways over in London, where I was the station manager at Liverpool Street for my sins. And a couple of years of that is enough to teach you everything that you want to know about customer service, how not to treat customers, because it's just constant battle, constant war. I ended up through that going into quality management, and through quality management into quality management consultancy, and that sort of led me into the areas of employee research, and through that customer satisfaction research. I had a particular client that was struggling to get this idea that in order to change your employee satisfaction scores, you've actually got to do something about it. So one day I was presenting to him, and I said, the employees are very unhappy. And he said, whoa, haven't we seen these figures somewhere before? And I said, well, they're like last year's figures, just worse. And he said, well, you'd want to do something about that, friend, because there's going to be no more big fat checks for you unless those figures start moving. So I was having a big problem in convincing him that, you've got to actually do something, and particularly you've got to spend some money on these people to tackle some of the issues. And that led me to... I basically used some Great Place to Work data. They had just started publishing a list with Fortune magazine. That was in 1997. So they had just started publishing with them. And I used their data and then approached them and said, look, can we have a chat about Ireland and the UK? And the rest is history.
How do managers start to leverage some of the successful methods to do if they're really just starting from scratch and they're probably working maybe with a challenging organization where funds are probably a little bit low?
Yeah, okay. The first thing I'd say is there's nothing that you can spend money on that will make a bad workplace good, right? And that's an important thing. There's this sense of, well, we can't create a great place to work because Google have such deep pockets or Facebook have such deep pockets.
Yeah, of course.
If you allow, what is a great place to work? A great place to work is one where people trust each other, okay, where there's a strong, trusting relationship between the manager and the employees. And if you think about that, I'll come back to your question in a sec, but if you think about that, how do we act when we trust and when we feel trusted? We contribute fully to the relationship, whether it's a friendship or whether it's being involved in a kid's sports club or whatever. So we contribute fully because we want it to be successful. We want to contribute something to this relationship. And it works exactly the same in work. So the corollary of that is if you don't feel trusted, what do? You don't bother, right? You learn that this person can't be relied on. You learn that when you bring ideas forward and he says, I'll think about it, that actually means, you'll never hear about this again. And people just gradually switch off. And some of them go and work somewhere else, and a lot of them don't. They just stay there being unproductive. So to answer your question, what if you have no money? Well, if you have no money, what you really want to do is you want to get your business being as productive and profitable as possible, because the one thing you can control is what happens with the money that comes into your business. Sales are somebody else's decision, whether to do business with you or not. But the money you've got in the business is yours to manage. So wouldn't it be better to have a group of people that are fully engaged, that are contributing fully, that are bringing their brains to work rather than just their hands? Because remember, so many of us now, our productivity is measured in the ideas that we have, or the concepts that we explain, or the communication that we do. It's not in physically delivering something that can be counted and measured. So, you know, if somebody says, I need you to have 20 great ideas today, you need really to have the person motivated and switched on for that to happen. You're not going to beat 20 good ideas out of somebody. Well, you might, but it wouldn't be recommendable.
I don't see that would be very good.
So what should a manager do? Well, what a manager should do is do what she does in every other aspect of her life where she has relationships. Work on the relationship. And you don't need any training. You don't even need to read the bloody book. You just need to understand. People are no different in work than they are at home, unless you cause them to be different at work. Okay, so if you make somebody pretend to be something else, or if you make them leave their personality at the door, then you're not going to get all of that person, because they're going to be stilted. So what you want is, you want people just to feel comfortable so that they can come and do their best work. And what that means is being able to count on you, and you being able to count on them. And it really is as simple as that.
Yeah. So I remember you actually saying to me before that in a company that doesn't have a lot of trust, things move very, very slow. Political environment is very, very heavy. People are more trying to think that people want them to do it because they're manipulating them, or there's a different angle, political games come in. Where you change that, or trust rules, companies move very fast. Decision making gets very thorough. People want to come up with a solution because it's the best solution to come up with. They ultimately want to achieve everybody's goals and aspirations, because fundamentally they want everybody to be successful in that organization. And that can be the difference between companies achieving successful growth and people not achieving successful growth. Do successful companies really understand that? Do they understand the importance of trust in organizations?
I think increasingly, yes, but for a long time, I think they were doing it without, many companies were doing it without actually putting a name on it of trust. But that is really what it comes down to. It's probably the same way as in any other relationship. Like if you were just having a casual conversation about, I don't know, think of your best mate or some of your mates or whatever, you'd probably need to scrape back the layers a little bit to figure out, well, actually, the reason that I like them so much is because I trust them. Or you certainly wouldn't be saying the reason I like them so much, or I like them so much despite the fact that I don't trust them. And once you stop to think about it, you realize without trust, nothing worthwhile can be achieved. You know, nothing worthwhile, nothing enduring can be achieved without trust. And just to go back for a sec to the thing about money, if you think about a bad relationship, right? Let's say a husband and wife relationship, and it's not a good relationship. It's a fairly bad relationship. So what effect is a bunch of petrol station flowers going to have on that relationship? It's not going to make it better, right? It's possibly going to make it worse, because it sort of just accentuates how empty everything is between us and so on. On the other hand, if you have a really good relationship and you pick a daisy in the garden and you bring it in and you say, "Hi, pet, thinking of you, here you go. This is, you know, happy anniversary." Well, you mightn't get away with that, but you know what I mean? It's a small thing can actually just highlight what's so special about the relationship.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same in work. Like if you've got employees who don't trust you and you introduce free lunches, all you're doing is you're feeding people who don't trust you. So you tackle the underlying issue, and that's what makes it a great place to work. And the icing on the cake then is the free food, or the donut on a Monday morning, or, you know, the coffee on a Tuesday afternoon. It's those, you know, none of those gifts buy loyalty or friendship or respect or trust. The same as in any relationship.
What I find fascinating about the whole thing is that people understand there's always going to be friction with trust. And there's always going to be friction, that it's never going to be perfect. But once there's an active communication from the top, and that's spread around, this is how things are, this is the way it's going, this is our intentions, that intentions are really, really important when it comes to trust. That if you have good intentions and you go out of your way to be proactive in leading with generosity and how you want to drive things forward, people really resonate with the intentions of trust. And when they're actually looking to leaders and actually feeling like they're giving that discretionary effort to their colleagues. Did you notice that as well?
Yeah, like, I mean, certainly it's that I think if the motivation is right, then you forgive transgressions or you forgive failings and so on both sides. Because again, like, I mean, you know, if the trust is there, then you'll appreciate that the motivation is pure.
Yeah.
If the motivation is impure, then the trust isn't going to be there. So it doesn't really work. Like, the thing about it is, like, you were saying that I want to be a footballer or whatever. Well, I didn't want to be a footballer. Definitely not. I would have had the talent to pump up the football, but not much more. But if you ever had an ambition to be a guru, for example, you wouldn't try to become a guru in this area, because it is so steeped in common sense that really everything I've got to say can be boiled down to, if you can build relationships outside of work, then you can build relationships in work, right? And if you can sit with mates over a pint or over a coffee or whatever, come for a walk on the coast, and allow them to be themselves, then just do the same things in work. And managers most often make the mistake of thinking, if my employees showed themselves to be trustworthy, then I could trust them. Like, if I could be sure they wouldn't let me down. But if you could be sure they wouldn't let you down, then they wouldn't be employees, they'd be angels, or,
Yeah.
So it's about managing, like, extending smart trust, like intelligent trust. You don't allow them sort of total freedom on day one. You build trust gradually, just like you do with anybody else in any other situation. But it genuinely is as simple as that. And the rewards come just as the rewards come in every other field where trust is present.
You were saying it was common sense, but an awful lot of things about common sense, Bob, is they're not necessarily common. People know them, but they don't necessarily actually do them.
Yeah, and so if you wanted to focus on unlocking the benefits of high trust, right? Unlocking the benefits of the people in your organization, my advice would be just to start with one simple thing. So one of the things that resonates most frequently is this thing about promises. So to give you a simple example, the work that I did for Trust Rules involved analysing 2 million survey responses, like responses from 2 million people around the world.
Wow.
The original plan that I had was I was going to write a book about the different things that cause people in one culture to trust compared to in another. So I had data from 80 countries, gender, ethnicity, Generation X, baby boomer, and so on. And what I found was there's virtually no difference across any of those things, right? And not only that, like, if you think about this, for those 80 countries, if you want to make the list of the top 10 drivers of trust for each of those countries, out of 57 possible statements, you only need 13, right? Out of that set of 13, you can make the top 10 for every single country. And in every case, in the top 2 is a simple statement, which is, my manager delivers on his promises. Okay? For every 20 people who answer that question positively, 19 of them will also say, and this is a great place to work.
Wow. Such a simple thing to get right.
Okay, and for every 20 who say, well, my manager doesn't really deliver on our promises, you'll have 9 out of 10, so 18 out of 20 will also say, and by the way, it's not a great place to work. So it's an incredible driver, just something as simple as that. So here's an interesting thing. When you talk to employees or when you talk to managers, you say it's really important that you keep your promises. And they say, oh, yeah, I do. And they'll give you examples of what are generally big promises that they've kept. And then you talk to employees and you say, so does your manager keep her promises? And they'll say, yeah, the big things, yeah, but the small stuff, the important stuff, no. And think about that, the small stuff, the important stuff. So the sort of thing that they talk about is if somebody says, okay, give me 5 minutes and I'll get back to you. Now, when you say give me 5 minutes and I'll get back to you, you don't really mean 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But supposing you're in work and your husband is on the other end of the line and he's waiting to hear if you can take a half day on Friday to look after the dog or something like that. And you've asked your manager and she said, give me 5 minutes and I'll get back to you. And in an hour's time, your husband rings and says, well, any word? And you say, no, she's tied up in a meeting. I'm sure she will. And it goes on and on. And actually, a tiny thing, like just a casual use of language. Another one is, let me think about it. So many managers say, let me think about it, but what they actually do is they forget about it. So let me think about it is almost like managerial shorthand for forget about it.
Yeah.
The difficulty with that then is that employees feel that their manager is undependable, that the small things aren't delivered on, and because they're not delivered on, I can't trust you, right?
Brilliant.
So if you're going to pick one thing, that's what I would pick. I would just say, so a couple of quick pointers. Napoleon Bonaparte said, the best way to break less promises is to make less promises. Okay, so stop and think before you make a promise. That's the first thing. Second thing is write down the promises that you make. Like if you say to somebody, I'll let you know about that tomorrow, write it down. And that's as important as anything else you're going to do, probably more important, because it's, a building block of the relationship. And don't try to take on too much. Like you've got a job to do as well. So even if you're just to spend 30 days and the focus is promises, you're going to be better off and your employees are going to be better off at the end of 30 days. Then you can pick something else. It's a cliche about 30 days to make a habit and 30 days to break a habit. But that's really what I recommend. Don't go for a big bang. Just pick one thing and focus on that and get that right. And then pick something else and, it works.
And what advice would you offer to your younger self if you're having coffee with him?
What advice would I offer to my younger self? Okay, well, the first one I would say would be trust less, which is a bit ironic. I would tend to be quite, I tend to be quite positive about things. And when you're a positive person, this is in general rather than just for me, when you're a positive person, you tend to trust people quicker because you tend to see the upside, what can go wrong, what's the worst that can happen. If you're a pessimist, if you're used to seeing a glass half empty, you're much slower to trust. Now, incidentally, I know it's not the point of the question, but if you're a manager, you need to recognize that different people will be slower or quicker to trust you based on their worldview. So don't expect instant results the same from everybody. So anyway, my advice to myself would be probably, I wish that I had understood that there are a lot of people who don't actually deserve to be trusted. Wow. There's a lot of Schlievings out there. Like, I wouldn't say they're certainly not a majority. And I think when we interact with people in business, you'd know this yourself, most people are decent, most people are sincere, and most people will have a sincere intention to do what they say they're going to do. But then you've got other people who take advantage of that. And my wife is a very pragmatic, practical person. And if I had listened to her advice more over the years, I would probably have been slower to trust some people that I did trust. So that's certainly one. To trust, be slower to trust rather than trust less is probably it.
Bob, you're an absolute gentleman. Thank you very much for taking my call today. And guys, if you do buy a book, make sure to get it. It is a skill to get so little words to say so much messages. How I'd say it is every sentence is like a seminar. You're a gentleman. Thank you very much, Bob.
Thanks a million, Mark.
See you soon. Bye.
See ya.
You've been listening to the What I Know Now podcast with Mark Kelly. To subscribe to the podcast, just enter WIKN into iTunes or any Android podcast of choice, or check out the website at www.wikn.co. I'd love to get your feedback, either positive or negative, about the episode and what action you're going to take. I look forward to seeing you next week, and remember, have an absolutely super day. Bye.